All right, hey there, Sam with you here on a Thursday, April 26th, kind of mid morning here. We've done our polling amongst the members. I've got 3 coins we're going to review today in video. First up here is Verge to Bitcoin. I've got the 8-hour here on Binance. Now we're going to dig into the hard right edge, but just a couple of things to point out here. All of this analysis is based off of this pivot down here being a technical low. Now, there's some interesting things that have happened here along the way. I think I've shown this before, but just as review, as to why we're basing the analysis off of that pivot. So if I pull swing low, likely here we've got a front run on the 50. We can see we go right to target. But if you were unsure about that pivot, if we work from it here again, here we see right to the golden zone, and we get this confluence down here for an algo target, and I suppose you could call that a reaction, to say the least. Now, so we get a technical pivot down here, and we've had all of this action since then. Now, one thing to point to quickly, and this is where this is a difficult coin to analyze here, so it's a little tricky. Now, note this. So if I go all the way up here to my absolute high, and I swing to my absolute low. Well, this is interesting. Look what we've done here. So we've gone up. Here's no surprise. Come here. No surprise here. The first thing we do is tap the 618, right? That's the natural resistance. Well, of course, you'd expect some at the 50, gets right through it. Then we up and we literally just wick the 618 to the tick, right? So spot on here. Now, this is where we get a little conundrum. We get the break of the 6.5. It's very small, very small. But look at the reaction. So we know this is news driven, right? If anybody doesn't know, I'll let you do your own digging as to recent news with Verge. But let's say they're looking to break into some new markets. So with that, now technically, why do we care? Well, so we got to do the same thing going back the other way. So if I take this swing low, right, and I go up to just get that absolute, get it right on that high here. Well, look down here. So this is interesting. It's something I've seen before. I've noticed it, that often if you get a slight break on one side, you'll get a slight break on the other side. And note what happens here. It's almost identical. So we come up here to the 618, we get a reaction off of it. We come down to the 618, we get a reaction, but then we get this last little roll over here that takes us through the 65. So this is a good example of, clearly we have a fib fight going on here as bulls and bears battle it out between these two golden zones. But now, you got to look. This is where a little judgment and some Elliott wave knowledge will serve to be useful here, I think. So, the fact that we break here now, from the most recent swing, that would give the edge to the bears on that break, on the assumption now that we're going to have algos that will work from this swing to this swing, and they're going to run into. So I'll pull this off now as we just declutter the chart a bit. So we have the break here. So working our way back up, if this is going to head back up, we're going to have natural resistance here as these algos kick in to start selling at the 50 and defend up to the 618, flip on the 65. So do we get that? Well, we got to look at this to some degree now. If this is we have a 5-wave structure here. Now we can debate as to my count, and I'll show you why I've got that set that way. But if algos are going to kick on the way back looking for, so an algorithm is going to start selling here on the way back at the 50 with this as their target. Well, we have conflicting signals here because we have a 5-wave, we have a motive wave coming off of this technical low that we know was a good pivot. And we've got a pretty dramatic reaction. Now we've come into a news event. So we have buy the rumor, sell the fact kind of a thing happening here. So this is clearly going to be something that any Verge bulls are going to need to deal with, and we've got to get through that resistance. From an Elliott perspective, I'm going to go off the 8-hour. Oh, let's go to a 2-hour and see if that gives us enough detail. So if I look up here, now, I'm labeling this as an X wave. So the reason I'm doing that, there's good symmetry here for this 5-wave structure. It's all very technical. We get our nice 5-wave 1, 2, 4 comes down. We don't overlap the 1. It's not there's possibility we've got a truncated 5th here. It's not the cleanest count I've ever seen, but the symmetry of it is all quite good. So if we were, just kind of drawing, I can do it this way. If we were drawing up this kind of a price move here, where we've had this channel all self-contained here, this I don't see this as a, I don't see this as a 4-5 coming up here, implying that the fifth is up here. I just don't see it that way. The symmetry is not right. So what I think is more likely what we have happening here from an Elliott perspective is that we get an ABC coming down here that starts the correction of this fifth. So looking for, let me take that off. So looking for what you might expect. So if I work from my low, from my technical pivot down here, the start of my 5-wave sequence, and I work up to my fifth. Well, this is, this is slightly problematic, because if we make the assumption that this 5-wave is completing an impulse wave, we're looking for our second, but we know a second has higher probability of making the 50 to the 618, and it can go as deep as the 786. Right, so this being here as an ABC, it's problematic from an LA perspective in terms of the lower odds. Now, 12% of the time we will have a wave 2 that's shallow, but it's the lower percentage. So here, now we get the news event, and you can see this reaction here. So what I think we have here is our first ABC corrects to the 38. We get the big news-driven spike, and then the sell-off that's resultant to that. So what I see is a WXY. That's an extreme, certainly, right? And we get, you could think of it as an expanded, you could label this as an ABC. I think we've got a WXY. So this is the corrective wave, although, of course, it does break the prior swing high here, but the symmetry now coming down suggests to me that the ABC is setting up with an effort here to complete down here. Now, granted, we have the break of the 65. From an Elliott perspective, we still are valid as a 1-2. So going to the larger count here, if I work down here, I would still see it this way, 4 and 5. Let's get that up to a degree that makes sense. And we can go to, let's go to minuet. Okay, so there, let me get this dialed in here. Okay, so you can see this little breakdown here. So I do think that's an A, B, and then we come down for the C. Now, how do we confirm that? Well, this has got to start moving impulsively. Now, I'm still on a 2-hour, and we're getting some signs here. Granted, of course, we are going to have to deal with, and I will use the pivot, the higher pivot, because an algorithm doesn't care about the Elliott wave structure. It's just going to sell that 50. So that's, kind of interesting. We're going to need to deal, and look here, we get some natural resistance here from prior support potentially kicking in there as a resistance zone. So can we get through that if it's going first? So first question, if we're going back up. That's going to be likely resistance here. You see we get in some no volume nodes. This is market acceptance down here where we've got our bell curve of our volume profile. So market accepts this price. Up here, we do go into this little low volume node. Be interesting to see if we're going to challenge that 618 if we're heading back up. So you got to look at this and say, well, that certainly could be a complex, but albeit a clear 1-2. Well, that would suggest that if that's going to play that way, we don't know, but if it is going to, and the third is going to be much, much higher up here, we got a very bullish scenario that is in the making here for Verge if we're going to recover from this news event and start moving off of this low. So taking some of this off now here just to clear up the chart. So we know I'm going to leave this here, and we know that resistance is going to be there. Let's go down. I'm going to go all the way to a 30-minute. See, we have any makings here of this looking to go into some sort of a motive wave structure. So let me zoom in on it. It's not gorgeous. So here's the potential now. So we might be looking here at this kind of thing if that's a 1. Oh, it might be 2 here. We get an ABC into a 3. There's our 4, and so we're trying to get a diagonal to complete. So coming here looks like I've got an ABC to give me my third. We know that the fourth, now if we're going into a diagonal, we're going to look for the relationship between the start of the 1 to the peak of the third, looking for a 50 on my 4. So if I bring that up, kind of interesting. Potentially now what we've got is a little front run here on the 50. We've got our algo target up here. So this, kind of looks like it might be in play. So if I work off of these lows down, geez, come on, TradingView, working off this kind of sets me up here as a potential one wave as a leading diagonal. So if we bring all this back together, so I've got A, B, C here down here for this 2. You know, it's not the prettiest I've ever seen. Got an A, B, C in my third. So we have the ingredients here for this to be setting up as a one wave, a diagonal, a leading diagonal in our one wave. So we can start to build a case now for coming off of that low if this is going to hold. We don't know that we're going to get there, but we have the contender here for a diagonal setting up that. So let's go, I'll put that back in white, and we'll go up a degree. Okay, so can we complete the 5th up here? If we do complete it, right, so swing low, swing high. Now I've gone hypothetical here. Now if we get up and we complete our 1 here, we know our 2 would be set up down here. We'd be looking for that ABC pattern, that corrective kind of pattern that we would look for to help us identify the location for our next buy zone. So coming down here, go to yellow. Let's get the wave on that just to make the case. Okay, so this is you know, a reasonable location here for us to be targeting, looking for all of this to come together here. So here's the roadmap. A, B, C, we don't know where the A goes. You know, we're just hypothetical here. That would be idealized. We come down here, we come right to our point of control, right at the 50, and that's your buy for the 1, 2. 3, 4, 5 going much higher. All right, so if we think about where this could be going, as I've shown you many times, we know the negative 100 will be very close to the 1618, our wave 3 target. So you've got setting up here the potential for a nice looking trade. If it's a buy at the 50, and we don't know what it's going to look like when we get there, but if we get there, well, if stop on the other side of the 65, there's 8.7 to 1. Right, if we're going a little deeper, if we're going to go down and challenge the 618, well, this is you know, a good example of the kind of positioning, and if you want to call it laddering, that's fine, that I would suggest that you do for something like this. So you don't want, you know, the first entry, you've got to give the stop more room. So you're giving, assuming you're trading the market, you're going to, and not just an arbitrary figure relative to your account balance. If you are trading the market here, well, here's where you want to get on the other side. So we want to be stopped out on the other side of the 65. So you might give that just a tiny bit of room. So there's 8.2 to 1. But the second buy is down here. Right, so we've got all that upside, but we have much lower risk on the downside. So this is where, that's why, so the first position needs to be smaller relative to what you might add here, because the risk reward is so much better down here because you've got a much closer exit for your stop. So if we go back up here, if we're going to get to that wave 3 target here, now here we get 23.6 to 1. So you got to think about that in terms of how you're going to approach capital allocation if you're going into this trade. So you might think, you know, maybe I'll do 40% here, 60% here, could be 50-50, you know, whatever you're comfortable with. The reason to be a buyer here, in case we don't make the 618, at least you still have a piece of it. And then if you get the push off of that, right? Come here. So if we get the push off of that and it looks like the 2 is in and we're not going to get filled down here, well, then you have the opportunity to add on the first pullback within that third. So if this is 1, 2, well, within my third, I'm going to get a 1. And then I've got the opportunity to wait patiently and wait for the 2 there, looking for that to go into my third of my third. Right? So if you miss it here, don't be discouraged. The idea is, oh, well, I've got a nice technical entry here. So once that's in, then this can get moved to break even, or just below the 50. So you tighten up, so you've lowered the risk. So now what do we have? I can't even read it. What would that be? So like 35 to 1. So now you have almost no risk in the market, and you're able to add here with a slight profit. So that this position, if you were to be adding, so let's just play that through. So if you were to be adding here, now you've got stop here under the pivot, and then we got to back it all up. So okay, so you missed the lower entry. Now we look at that, and we've got, so there's 9 to 1. So in case you, I mean, that's just how to approach, that's how I would approach it. Anytime we're coming down here, I want an initial bite of it down here in case I don't make the 618. Now, of course, it's part of this is a function of what kind of technical action we see within the C wave, assuming we're getting that kind of cooperation in terms of the subdivision. But if we get that and I take the next breakdown here, I'm not discouraged because I like this play here. I've already got a slight winner underway and no risk on that trade. And now I'm here, I'm going to be able to go in at a 9.3 to 1 with very modest downsides. So that might impact the size that you put on here. Maybe it doesn't because we're now confirming this low. If this holds and we start to move away, now we have the trend underway as we have now a series of higher lows. Right, so we break that, and then here, so this is where it gets important. Do we break here and go now into higher highs? So higher low, higher high would imply that we're on our way and we're heading towards this 3, depending on the angle and the timing of when we get there. So all of those ingredients are there. So you have to, it's a bit like chess, right? So you're trying to think ahead in terms of what's my next move if X happens. So if we go up here and we complete this motive wave and we get our diagonal, well, that implies that I've got a good pivot down here. I've got a 5-wave structure coming off of that. I do know I've got that resistance, that fib resistance on the way back up, but I got to start coming out of the hole, at least with a motive wave. So if I can start it with a diagonal, it's just fine with me. I've got a plan now. I know how to approach this when the correction starts. Right? So working through that should give you some ideas about how to approach that. I mean, this is a strong project. So just to review back over here, still despite, the salacious details of where they're offering their cryptocurrency, you've got great scoring here. We're 71 on their total score here over on CoinGecko, 86, clearly strong interest amongst the developers. Almost all the trading is to Bitcoin, and Binance gets the bulk of it. So there's still plenty of volume here. Still plenty of volume, still a very strong project. So what does the chart tell you? Right? Do you care about the Pornhub news? If you do, if you don't, I mean, you got an issue with it? Plenty of other places to allocate some funds. If you like this project and you're looking for a way in, well, there's a roadmap and a plan for you. All right, guys, I'll wrap it there.